what if winning a war actually meant losing everything? Today, we're going to dig into a scenario that keeps military strategists up at night. A full-scale conflict between the United States and Iran. And believe me, this isn't just another war in the Middle East. It's a potential stress test, one that's designed to fracture the entire global system. All right, so here's how we're going to break this down. First, we'll look at the forces that are pushing these two countries toward war. Then, we'll walk through a hypothetical invasion. And after that, we'll analyze the absolutely shocking strategy Iran could use, not by fighting on the battlefield, but by targeting the world's economic lifelines, collapsing the petrodollar, and redrawing the entire geopolitical map. So, is this conflict really inevitable? That's the big question, isn't it? And, well, the answer isn't so straightforward. To really get it, we need to trace the path of escalation that's brought these two powers right to the brink. I mean, the last few years have been a relentless march toward conflict. You had the US pulling out of the nuclear deal, then the assassination of a top Iranian general, and finally, these unprecedented direct strikes between Israel and Iran. These events have completely shattered the old rulebook and set the stage for a much, much larger confrontation. And what's really chilling when you look at it is this dangerous symmetry of warmongering. On one side, in the US, you've got political pressure and this sense of military hubris pushing things towards a fight. Then, over in Iran, you have the powerful Revolutionary Guard just itching for revenge, seeing a war as a way to consolidate power. You see? Both sides, for their own very different reasons, are walking straight towards the same cliff. All right, so how does all this simmering tension just explode into a full-blown invasion? Let's fast forward a few years into a hypothetical future and see how America could walk right into a very carefully laid trap. I want you to picture this. It's March 2027. You turn on the TV, and President Trump is on the screen, announcing Operation Iranian Freedom. It's happening. A coalition, the US, Israel, Saudi Arabia, is launching a full-scale invasion. And of course, the public reasons given, they're powerful. They're designed to get maximum buy-in. It's all framed as a noble mission for democracy, a defensive action to stop a nuclear Iran, a way to protect the global economy, and of course, a just response to terrorism. And in the beginning, everything seems to be going exactly to plan. It looks like a textbook victory, right? The news channels are flooded with images of overwhelming American military might. They've got total control of the air and sea. A huge force of over 100,000 troops has landed on Iran's southern coast, and they're getting ready to push north. So based on everything you're seeing on your screen, this war looks like it's over before it's really even started. The question seems simple, doesn't it? Who won? But the answer, well, the answer is going to change how you think about modern war. Because the answer is the complete opposite of what you'd think. And it all comes down to a brilliant strategy designed for the weaker side to win by losing. Listen to this quote from Professor Jiang Xuequn. Obviously, Iran has won the war. Now, how is that possible? It sounds crazy, but it gets to the absolute core of Iran's strategy, which has nothing to do with fighting the US military head-on. And that strategy is called asymmetrical warfare. It's brilliant, really. You don't try to match your enemy's billion-dollar aircraft carrier with your own. No way. Instead, you use cheap, fast, and unconventional methods to just bleed your opponent dry until they're forced to give up. The goal isn't to win on the battlefield. It's to make victory so unaffordable that a superpower's economy just breaks. I mean, just look at the economics here. It's staggering. During that True Promise strike, Iran spent maybe $30 million. You know what it cost the US and Israel to defend against it? Over $1 billion. $1 billion. Iran can inflict massive economic pain for a tiny fraction of the cost, and that's a strategy they can keep up for a lot longer than their opponents. Okay, so here's the crucial point to understand. The real war isn't going to be fought soldier to soldier in the desert. No, it's going to be fought against the critical infrastructure that keeps the modern global economy and entire nations alive. And you know what the most terrifying, most effective target is? It's not a military base. It's not an oil field. It's something much more fundamental, something essential for human survival in that part of the world: water. Just look at how dependent these nations are. Kuwait gets a staggering 90% of its drinking water from desalination. Saudi Arabia, 70%. These aren't tiny little buildings. They are massive, vulnerable industrial plants just sitting on the coast. Basically perfect targets for cheap drones and missiles. I want you to let this sink in for a second. According to diplomatic cables, If just one major Saudi desalination plant is taken out, the capital city Riyadh could become uninhabitable in about a week. Think about that. That's not a military setback. That is a societal collapse waiting to happen, all triggered by a single attack. But look, this attack on infrastructure, that's just the beginning. That's just step one. The next target is much, much bigger. It's not regional, it's the very foundation of American global power, the petrodollar. For the last 50 years, this has been the bedrock deal. The US acts as Saudi Arabia's bodyguard, and in return, the Saudis price their oil only in US dollars. This is huge because it forces every other country on Earth to constantly buy dollars if they want to buy oil, creating the very foundation of the dollar's global dominance. And for you and me, that system has generally meant more stable prices and lower inflation. Okay, but what happens to that deal when the US gets humiliated in a war with Iran, right? If America can't even protect its own troops on the ground, how on earth can it guarantee the security of the Saudi kingdom? The perception of US power is the only glue holding this entire system together. And look, this isn't some far-off theory. This is happening right now. The BRICS nations, they're already building alternative payment systems. Saudi Arabia is already talking about selling oil in other currencies. And China's on the sidelines offering a very tempting deal. Buy our oil in our currency, the yuan, and we'll even let you convert it to gold. A US defeat would be like pouring rocket fuel on this fire. So, what's the end game in all this? After all the dust settles from a war like this, who's really left standing on top? The answer might surprise you. You know, when you really break down the motivations here, they become brutally clear. The US wants regime change. Iran wants to force an invasion to humiliate the US and become the top dog in the region. But here's the most cynical part, and it may come from America's own allies. For Israel and Saudi Arabia, the ultimate victory isn't an American win. It's a brutal war that destroys Iran and cripples America's presence in the region, leaving them as the undisputed new powers. So in the end, this whole scenario forces us to ask a much bigger question. It's not really about who wins or loses a war between two countries. It's about a trap designed to stress test the breaking point of the global systems of water, energy, and finance that all of us depend on. So the real question is, what kind of world is left behind when they finally fail?